Podcast. Did you miss us? We missed you. Baby, are you excited about this podcast tonight?
I am so excited because we are going to be talking about love all month.
Long. Love, so many people use your name in vain. So we're going to be talking about love all month long because February is Valentine's Day and it is the time that people embrace love. It's what young people call the cuffing season. But we want to make sure that you are cuffed up
With
and
the
not locked up.
and you cuffed up with the right person.
Right?
Yes.
Because if you cuff up with the wrong person, you might get locked up.
Oh,
So
locked up.
we're going to talk about what love has to do with it. Love has to do with it, with everything as it relates to love, because love is a foundation that is
Mhm.
necessary to build the house of love. Without a solid foundation, that house can be real shaky. You know, the Bible tells us that it gives a parable of how when you hear the word of God, it's like building your house on a solid foundation versus a man who builds his house on sand. And if you do not build your house of love on something solid, it can be a deck of cards.
Yes.
And see, we want to make sure that y'all got a solid foundation. Are y'all ready to dig into this tonight? One of the texts that my wife and I keep coming back to is the Song of Solomon. The Song of Solomon is one of the most erotic pieces of literature in the Bible. But yet in this text, the female lover in this text keeps harping on this warning that she gives young women. She keeps saying, "What, babe?
Do not waken love until it's time.
Do not stir up or awaken love before it is time." What does she mean? Why is she warning these young ladies not to stir up love? What are your thoughts on that?
Stirring up love before it's mature is immature. It's immature love or immature like because you're not mature enough. You haven't gone through some things,
Mm-hmm.
and when you are mature, you're able to handle whatever your partner is going through.
Yeah. You know, when she says do not stir up love before it's time, I'm reminded of this study that I've been reading about sexual energy.
Okay.
Sexual energy or kundalini energy gets stored up in our sacral
Okay.
area,
Yeah.
right above our root chakra, right in the right below your navel. There's the energy, the sexual energy that is sometimes stuck
Mm.
because of post traumatic stress, because of some kind of abuse that somebody went through early, some kind of setback they went through as a child, and they never experienced genuine love. So this energy can either get locked up or it can get expressed in a negative way to where people go looking for love in all the wrong places and in all the wrong ways. The
Right.
Apostle Paul talked about it when he said, "It is better to marry than to burn." Now, you and I, when we were growing up, that scripture meant what?
It meant that whoever was telling the scripture that you needed to get married before having sex because they're saying if you're having sex then you're gonna burn.
You're going to burn in hell
Right.
or get burnt going to the doctor. Uh, but that fear tactic of the
Mm.
church has set us back so many years, and we don't have agency over our own sexuality because we have proof text people into this rigid existence of love by trying to put the judgment of God upon people in terms of their sexuality. Here's the thing: if God never meant for us to express sexual energy, why would he put it in us? That sexual energy is for the benefit of of people in a covenant relationship to enjoy passionate sex. But what this woman tells us in this text is, don't you stir this up. Don't stir up this good old sexual energy until you're ready. So we want to give you four things tonight, um, in terms of how you handle in a in a in a manageable way this wonderful sexual energy that God has blessed us all with, because we want y'all to be naked and unashamed. We want y'all to have the best sex you've ever
Mhm.
had in your marriage life. We want y'all to experience love without limits, but it requires you not to stir up love before you're ready for it. What does that mean, Rhonda, in a practical way? Number one.
Number one is that you have to be mature.
Mm, come on.
Being mature gives you, for lack of a better word, agency on being able to handle what is going on with your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
Being mature allows you the brain power and the heart power to be able to console your spouse in a positive way. So it's just being mature. Immaturity means that you're still acting childlike, you're still going out doing childish things in the relationship, and that's not good.
You know, the writer of Song of Songs uses fruit as an allegory for the relationship. She
Okay.
talks about sitting under the shade tree and tasting her lover's fruit. Um, she talks about the love being nourishing like raisins or apples. It's interesting that she uses fruit because if you don't eat fruit at the right time, when it's ripe, you'll get sick.
Absolutely.
You remember when I was a kid, I told you about this story when I climbed Uncle Babe's tree,
Mm-hmm.
got me a green pear, ate it,
What happened?
and had to go to the emergency room because it was not ripe yet. It was green. It was supposed to be yellow. And a lot of times we bite into people too early.
Hmm.
You better be careful what you're eating, because if that person's heart is not ripe, if their emotional maturity is not ripe, if their spiritual maturity is not right. You know, Paul also talked about do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. Sometimes you feel like you're doing all the pulling in the relationship because you're pulling somebody who's undeveloped.
Okay.
They have to be mature enough to handle relationship. Both of you have to be mature. God designed healthy romantic love to have a ripening process that cannot be forced. There'll be no wine until it's time. While I'm not saying you should throw caution to the wind, turn your brain off, and just give in to carnal pleasures, I'm saying that this charge in Song of Solomon is to not arouse or awaken love until it so desires. It's saying that love must be free to develop in its own timing. It's so important that we process our own pain points. Many of us have experienced arrested development. Something happened to where we have not fully matured, and dating is a process by which we learn more about who.
Absolutely. About the person that you're dating and yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's the process of getting to know one another, and there are steps in developing. It's a natural progression in a relationship when you're dating, that you're experiencing things together, that you will go through some things and you mature, and then you'll get on this level playing ground per se,
Mm-hmm.
where you're both mature and that you can experience the same things together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know, in Song of Solomon, chapter 2 and 3, it says, as an apple tree among the trees of the forest, so is my beloved among the young men. You can't force a flower to bloom, nor can you force an apple to be ripe. Rather, you must give it what it needs to thrive and let it grow in its own timing. So before you say, I do, you got to make sure that you and that person are mature enough to handle the commitment that comes through a lifelong relationship. And dating is a process to sample the fruit, to squeeze it. You know, when I go in the grocery store and I buy a watermelon, I've learned you got to turn that watermelon over to where the yellow spot is and you thump it. And when you thump it, you know, if it sounds hollow, then it's right. If it's a
Mm-hmm.
boom, boom, you know, but if it's hard, it's not ready to eat yet. Have you done any thumping? I'm not talking about humping. I'm talking about thumping. Have you had conversations? That's thumping. Have you had interact enough interaction to see if they're ripe? Don't just jump in the sack with people and start eating if you haven't started thumping to make sure that it's right.
And it's a developmental phase. just like with the fruit that's ripening, it has to go through its own time to ripen properly. Because when fruit ripens properly, then you're able to get all the proper nutrients out of it that God designed the fruit to give you.
Oh yeah.
Just like with a relationship, God has designed both male and female with so many wonderful characteristics and attributes that if you are immature, you may miss all of it trying to get to the good stuff.
When we're
But the good
gonna when we're gonna get to the good part, you can't get to the good
mm-mm,
part like Ernest and Julio says. There'll be no wine until what?
before it's time.
Even wine has to mature,
Yes.
right? It's got to age.
Mm-hmm.
And the beautiful thing about being married for 30, almost 30 years now, be 30 years this year for us, is that like fine wine, it's gotten better with time because we've learned each other. We've been students of each other. And we've learned stuff about ourselves, right? We've made adjustments. But there are some things that we could have avoided if we would have paid more attention during the dating process
Mm-hmm.
and did some more thumping before we started humping. I think this is also what it meant by the phrase, by the gazelles or the does of the field that comes before the charge, that you not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. The gazelle is probably a reference to the man,
Mm-hmm.
and the doe is probably a reference to the woman. Since a doe is a female, you can't tame a wild gazelle or a doe. Did y'all hear what I just said? I said you cannot tame a wild gazelle or a hoe. I mean, a doe.
Well,
And men and women both can be hoes, but what I love about God is that he can redeem a hoe.
mm-hmm.
and 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 there's nothing wrong. Let me, how can I phrase this? The things that could have split off into the negative can become a positive when you put it within the proper context of a healthy relationship. So that whole spirit that we're so quick to label people with is really sexual energy that's gotten off track. And when you can take that sexual energy and reclaim it, it can make your marriage wonderful. Because we said this over and over again, it bears repeating, that men want an angel in the street and a freak in the bed. Now you want what, you want that energy, you want that whole energy. But God can redeem hoes because he redeemed Mary Magdalene in the Bible. Mary Magdalene was supposed to be a prostitute who had 7 demons, but she became a devoted follower of Christ. I believe that God can redeem my sexuality, he can redeem your sexuality,
Mm-hmm.
and bring it together for something that is absolutely amazing. What's the second point?
Love is responsible, not reckless.
Come on.
Now, being in love, now we're talking about a an agape love, not the phileo love. The well, phileo love is has some responsibility as well, but as far as that unconditional love toward your spouse, because when you are responsible with someone else's heart, then you're not going to be reckless.
Mm,
So when you love someone and you've grown and matured together, we're not talking about immaturity where you're going out with the girls all the time or the guys all the time, and you're setting up those healthy boundaries
mhm.
within your relationship that you both agree upon, then you're not being reckless. But if you do not do these things, then you are leaving a little bit of wedge for it to be reckless.
Yeah. Yeah, and I said, going back to what I said earlier on in this podcast, is that there's two options for people who have not managed well that kundalini or that sexual energy. Number one is you can repress it.
Mm,
It gets stuck or frozen, and it almost appears that the person is asexual.
okay.
They don't know how to show passion. They don't know how to ask for the sex they want. It gets stuck,
Are they withdrawn? Yes,
withdrawn. They
yes.
don't know how to be affectionate. They don't know how, you know, to make love passionately. They're restricted. The other option is that they express it in a negative or dangerous or reckless way.
Mm,
They go out and they become promiscuous. They hurt a lot of people. You know, Jay-Z has a song on his 444 album where he apologizes to all the women that he played games with prior to becoming a married man and a father of a daughter,
Mm,
because he recognizes he does not want his daughter
mm.
to experience some man playing with her heart, and he doesn't want Blue to have to go through what he took Beyonce through. So he apologizes, right? Because Jay-Z recognizes that because of his own unprocessed emotional damage as a child, of not having a father present, of growing up in the streets, he was not ready for love. He even says in the song that he matured before Beyonce matured before he did, even though she's younger than him,
Mhm.
and he apologizes. So what I'm trying to say is that in order for love to be healthy, we've got to process our emotional damage and our deficits, or else it becomes reckless. So, and before Song of Solomon 2:7, the woman says in Song of Solomon 2:5, sustain me with raisins, refresh me with apples, for I am sick with love. Here we can see that a love that is awakened on time is able to sustain itself. Thus, a love that is awakened before it is ready is unable to sustain itself. A healthy love life is able to sustain you through difficult times.
Mm.
Our love, my wife's love nourishes me. When I'm sick, her love nourishes me. Her love never makes me sick. And if you're in a relationship that is toxic, that love cannot
Mm.
sustain you, because that person does not have the emotional capacity in which to nourish you, because they haven't learned how to love themselves. Thus, a love that is awakened before it is ready is unable to sustain itself. Their love is ready because it is sustaining the needs it is creating. Uh, let's talk about the next one.
Love is faithful and it's not fickle.
Come on now.
So in Song of Solomon 3 1 through 5, it's not entirely clear, but it appears that they're fighting.
Uh-oh, they're having their first big
They're
fight.
having a fight. It might not be the first one, but there might be some spatting going on here, because she is waiting in the bed for her lover.
Man, I know how that is.
She's not in the other room washing her makeup off or cleaning up. He's not at home. Why is he not there? So why do you think she's just waiting for him, and she's feeling a
Because
certain
he's
kind of
broken
way?
the pattern.
Okay.
She's
Okay.
all through this book, we see them meeting up under the tree,
Okay.
meeting in the house. They're having a wonderful time. Then we get to chapter 3, and he's missing in action.
Mm.
Sounds like a relationship, right?
Right.
We sometimes we take each other for granted, and we get to a speed bump in the road where we slack off on intimacy.
Okay.
We slack off on compliments. We start taking the other for granted. And this woman in this text, she goes looking for the man that's missing.
Okay.
Watch this. Sometimes you could be in a house with the person, but the person still be missing in action.
Uh,
And you're wondering, why are they breaking pattern? But if you have a strong love foundation, you go looking for the person instead of being laying in the bed mad at the person.
exactly. And like she did, she went out looking for him, and when she found him, she just held on to him and wouldn't let him go.
You know, one of the things you told me a long time ago, you said, when I get upset, just hold me. Do you remember saying
I
that?
do.
Why'd you
I
tell
do.
me that?
Because that is a grounding for me. Everyone has their own type of grounding. That is mine. So that is a grounding to bring me back to myself.
Yes. You got to hold on to each other. And strong love can sustain a relationship even when the person goes missing in action. Do you have the capacity to go looking for them, and instead of being mad at them and cuss them out when you find them, instead embrace them and hold on to them? She says, I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or the does of the field, that you not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. This is the second time in the Song of Solomon this phrase is repeated. It seems this phrase is coming at a different season in the couple's relationship than when it was quoted in Song of Solomon chapter 2. How many of y'all are in a different chapter in your marriage right now? You're no longer in the honeymoon phase. You're in the middle of your marriage, in the middle of your relationship, and things are starting to break up a little bit, and it's not as consistent as it used to be. Do you have enough love left in your tank to go looking for that person and wrap your arms around them and say, we're going to make this work? If you get deep into a relationship where love is not ready, the hard times will overtake you and split you up, causing much pain. In instances like this, it would have been better to not awaken these feelings for this person you are now separating from because the love was not there. Listen, marriage is a very serious thing. You cannot enter into it lightly or without much prayer, without counseling, without dating, because it takes work and
Every day.
intentionality every day.
Mhm.
You get out of it what you put into it.
Yes.
But it's important that you do the groundwork, that you prepare your fields so that when you plant the seed, that the fruit comes up.
Mm.
If you haven't tilled the ground, if you haven't removed painful memories, if you have not overcome childhood trauma, that stuff will show up later on in your relationship. And if the foundation is not there, it cannot be sustained. Here's the last thing you want to say something? You
Yes,
say something?
before that, it may not be that you have to get over it.
Ah,
It's the fact of communicating that with your spouse to get an understanding, because your spouse may not know some of these pain points,
mm,
some of this trauma, uh,
that's so
and
good.
and so through
That's good.
conversation, through communication, being able to communicate that in a mature, healthy way is only going to be the better for both of you.
That's right. That's right. I love what you just said, baby. And that is, in a real love relationship, you're open and transparent.
Absolutely.
You can talk about whatever you need to talk about with the person you've committed your life to.
Hmm.
If I can't tell you about how my childhood was interrupted, and I'm going to be transparent for a minute. At 6 years of age, my childhood was interrupted by a teenage cousin who exposed me to sex too soon. I told you that my childhood was also interrupted through the exposure to pornography when I was 12. So, all through my adolescence, because of abandonment issues, because of that void, I mistakenly thought that sex was equal to love,
Mm,
not knowing that love was necessary for sex.
absolutely.
And you taught me what true love looked like. You showed me what a healthy love life was all about. And I had to rearrange my brain. I had to be transformed in my thinking through counseling, through healing, so that I could be mature enough to be present for you, to give you the love that you desire. But you had to walk with me through my brokenness and be patient enough for me to mature in front of your eyes. We grew up together. We were teenagers when we met in college,
Hmm.
and you loved me enough to stick with me so that I could become the man that I am. But so many people don't know that, and they get into relationships and haven't disclosed any of the trauma or any of the drama that they've been through. And people get married and they're like, what is this
Right.
that's coming
This is
out?
not the person that I
This is not the
married.
person I
Right.
married. Um, but if you have a good foundation of love, even when you're met with surprises and pull back some of the layers and discover stuff you didn't know, you should have the bandwidth to be able to stay with that person and to help them. But that's why she keeps warning them. She says, do not stir up this sexual energy until you have the emotional capacity to handle it. Last thing we're going to tell you tonight, we're going to let you go. Love is first, not second to anyone. Your relationship, your relationship with your spouse, with your fiance, with your person you're seriously dating, that's primary.
Hmm.
That's primary. Nothing and nobody should come against what God has brought together.
Right.
By the time we get to Song of Solomon chapter 8, this couple is married and past the honeymoon phase, and now they are dealing with the issues that arise because of other responsibilities in life. Other people eventually always come into a couple's life and create opportunities for issues to occur between the man and the woman. Let me say this, y'all, when you get past the honeymoon phase and y'all locked into your careers and you're raising children, there are going to be multiple things that are coming at you from multiple angles. And you have to continue to prioritize your marriage, right?
You just said something key. You have to prioritize your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make sure that people are not trying to get into your by sowing seeds of doubt or mistrust. You have to make sure that you and your spouse set aside daily time to spend together.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I remember getting married, and our pastor told us, he said, God first, your spouse second, children third, and work fourth. And it's important that we always prioritize our relationship, our marriage.
Right.
That is the first institution. It's your first ministry. It's the first thing that you should be thinking about. And don't let other people get in the way of that. Since their love, these two people, these two lovers we're talking about in Song of Solomon,
Mm-hmm.
since their love was mature and ready to handle these issues, they rose above the outside influences trying to split them up, and their love still thrived. This is why in Song of Solomon 8:4, the woman repeats the phrase again, I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, that you not stir up or waken love until it pleases. If you get married to someone and your love was not mature, the pressures that come from the outside world, like job pressures, family pressures, societal pressures, will hurt your relationship and cause harm. But if your love is ready, it will be able to get through these issues that come later in marriage. When love is ready, the couple will have other responsibilities in life, but they will still prioritize their marriage above all these other people and duties. So tonight, I'm hoping that the couples that are listening, babe,
Mm-hmm.
realize that there's some preliminary work that has to be done before we can actualize the sexual energy that God has blessed us with. Within each and every person listening tonight, you've got some wonderful, powerful, passionate love that's ready to be unleashed. Some of y'all haven't had your best sex yet. Some of y'all have not made love at the highest level yet because you got some unprocessed pain, you got some blocked areas because of trauma, and you got some growing up to do,
That part.
growing deeper to do, right? Growing deeper. And we challenge you all to tap in and go deeper into the places that you have not inspected yet. And it's never too late. I don't care how long you've been married, how long y'all been dating. It's never too late to say, you know what? It's time for me to grow down deeper. It's time for
Mm-hmm.
me to grow up. It's time for me to be full hearted. It's time for me to unlock this trapped passion that's in my body. It's time for me to put healthy boundaries around this sexual energy and channel it into positive ways so that my relationship can flourish. Any parting thoughts you want to give the people tonight?
My parting thoughts would be that making sure that the love that you are having with your spouse, the verbal love, the physical love, the mental love, it's all on a higher level where you and your spouse are communicating, that you are loving each
Yeah.
other, and whatever, because things are going to come up, whether it's children, work, other responsibilities. Make sure that you pull each other over to the side and say, hey, this is what's going on, because true mature love will be able to handle it and make those adjustments.
Amen. Amen. Listen, we had a wonderful discussion with you. I hope you were blessed by it. Put some fire in the chat if you were blessed by it. Listen, do us a favor. We want you to come to our YouTube channel and we want you to subscribe. There's so much content that we want to share that may not be Facebook friendly, but we want you to get it. And so we want you to lock into Dr. Stacey L. Spencer's YouTube channel by subscribing. Also, if you want us to text you, I'm going to put the text number up here uh, so you can see this. If you want to stay in contact with my wife and I, you can text us and you can text connect to 833-676-3658. That's 833-676-3658. Text connect to that number and we will connect with you. Wednesday night,
Mm-hmm.
we have an informational meeting about our Jamaica International Marriage Retreat. So if you want to go kick it with us, we're celebrating 30 years of marriage and we want to help you get to the place where you experience the best sex you've ever had, the most passion you've ever experienced in your marriage. We're going to be teaching workshops on communication. We're going to give you techniques on how to take your lovemaking to the next level. We're going to go on excursions. What else are we going to do?
We're going to do some excursions. We're going to do a vow renewal. So that's always very, very special. We're going to have some beach activities. We're just going to have fun. And we know that when you are away with your spouse in a tropical
Mm-hmm.
location next to the ocean,
What?
the sun is shining.
What?
Oh my gosh, the
Bathing
food is
suits,
good. It's
sundresses.
always a good time.
Ah, I cannot wait. And so Wednesday night at 6:30,
6:30.
6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to have an informational Zoom meeting with the 40 plus couples who's already registered. And for your sake, we've got 10 rooms we've opened up if you still want to go with us. So if you want to go on this trip, simply text uh, Retreat 2023 to that same number I gave you early. Text Retreat 2023 to 833-676-3658 and do it tonight because
Right.
my wife needs to send you a Zoom link tomorrow. And if we don't hear from you by tomorrow, I'm sorry, we're going to move on because we've already
Yes.
got 40 plus couples.
Yes. This is the
that
last.
It will sell out.
It's going to sell out. So this is the last that we're opening it up. It's going to sell out. And so once you get this information, please join us at 6:30 on February 1st.
Hey, have we told you guys lately that we love you? We absolutely love you and we appreciate. We're pulling for your relationship. We're pulling for your
Absolutely.
marriage. And if you ever need some extra help, some extra coaching,
Mm-hmm.
we'd love to counsel you. We'd love to coach you. We even have a support group, a mentor marriage group called Eden Circle. And if you want to be a part of our mentor group and we walk with you and do life with you every week and every month, all you got to do to join that group is go to theedencircle.com, theedencircle.com, and we would love to be your mentors and your coaches. You need two things for a successful marriage. You need a coach and you need a community. And we'd love to be both of you. Listen, y'all have a good one. And listen, go make love like it's nobody's business. Hold on to each other and make love what it's meant to be. God has blessed you with each other. Now go enjoy each other. And we'll see you soon.
See you soon.